Hey everyone, it's Skirkridge and Bravster here, and welcome to Co-op Reviews. Say hello, Skirkridge.
Hello everyone, this is a new adventure that we're going down, and glad you could join us, and we hope you enjoy it.
As you can see from the gameplay that I've got running in the background at the moment, we'll be having a look at Ori and the Blind Forest today, or rather we'll be having a little bit of a chat about it, as is the new format. So we're going to start with presentation. Dave, what were your thoughts first going into the first couple of minutes?
So the visuals and the audio really do stand out in this game. It's by far the most appealing thing out of this game. I should probably talk about how long it actually took them to make this game. So the developers at Moon Studios, I've read this up as the reviews were going out. Apparently it took them 4 years in order to make this game. 4 years? Yeah. And it really does show with the amount of detail that's gone into the visuals. I mean, no matter what you're playing it on. So I'm playing it on Xbox One.
I've been playing it on PC at the moment, yeah.
But whatever you play it on, it's going to look amazing. It did remind me a fair bit of, I think it was Dust and Elysian Tale, which was another game that took 4 years to make. But whilst that game was made by one person in terms of the art style and coding, and it does have some really nice detail in the actual fluidity of the sprites that were in it. Ori and the Blind Forest feels a lot more like, say, a Studio Ghibli or Disney film in a sense, because just of how well it moves and the actual characters just ooze charisma.
The fact that the whole world's animated in such a enveloping way, I'd say. I mean, it's a hand-painted world to begin with, and that's no easy task. And you've got this fully orchestrated score in the background, so as soon as you load up the title screen, you're just met with this huge surge of emotion and passion, and it's amazing. It just blows you away every time.
So yeah, we absolutely love the presentation on this thing from the sounds of things, and to be quite honest, if you don't, then I'm not exactly sure what you're looking at, in all honesty, because even the backgrounds are amazingly detailed, and you don't get that amount of detail normally in games.
Definitely. I'd say points in it remind me of, say, like Limbo, the way the foreground interacts with the background, and
that's
just amazing.
That turns up partway through?
Yes, definitely. Within the first 10 minutes, I think it is, there's a spider that just creeps into the foreground. And it looks like it's going to properly interact with everything that's going on in the storyline, but then does nothing. Almost like it's trying to fool with your perception a little bit. Brilliant.
Let's talk a bit about the story. So if you'd like to give us an overview of what the narrative was from your end.
I cried. That's all I can say. I cried.
Did it remind you of Up?
If you're going to approach it from the Up perspective, you know exactly what's going to happen, you know exactly where it's going, and there is no way which you can prepare yourself for the mental trauma that it's going to inflict on you with two fists. It's the first 10 minutes is heartwarming and horrific all at the same time. It's horrible. During my recording through my playthrough of this, I had to stop the audio recording several times. Just because I just broke down in tears. I couldn't continue.
I certainly had to put the controller down. And not many games do that, in all honesty. As for, because I know you've only played a little bit of this game.
Yeah, I've played the first hour, maybe two.
So,
yeah.
Whereas I've got an entire perspective of the entire thing. So the entire game is more about misunderstandings and how characters that seem like they're not on your side actually have their own things that they wish to protect. And the game lets you in on those elements as you progress. So there's one part of the game where you're trying to unlock the first dungeon, as it were, of the game. And the key has just been nabbed by blob stick figure with legs. A bit like a spider, actually. It might actually be what that spidery thing was. He sort of makes you chase around after him in sort of his own lair, and has all these traps that he tries to set on you. And then all of a sudden he gets put into a situation, and through player actions and his actions, you get a different scope on what he's like as a character and what his motivations are. And as a result, the characters develop in the sort of, rather than using exposition, it uses the actual actions, which I think is a nice change of pace. And you don't get a lot of that. As a result, that makes the narrative really compelling.
Especially from a face value of this game. I mean, say someone was to pick it up from the shelf and just take a first look at it, for example. You're only really going to get that it's got hand-painted, full orchestrated, and it's a platformer, that kind of thing, and you can think, oh, I'll give it a go. But the fact that the characters develop the way they do is it means that you're so much more invested in the characters and this world. And it just kind of absorbs you, and it wants to absorb you, and you want to be absorbed by this world. It's just so fascinating. I can't wait to go back and play more of it, to be honest with you.
Let's talk a bit about gameplay, actually. So this game is definitely a Metroidvania style. If you don't know what I mean by that, coined by classic franchises Metroid and Castlevania, it's sort of that exploration style where you don't necessarily have the ability to go and explore certain areas until the game says, this is the ability that you've just got for defeating this boss. Now you can go back and go and explore that area, for example.
So there's quite a lot of backtracking to the game then?
There's a lot of backtracking, and I think that actually, in this particular instance, because of how short it is, it's actually quite good that it does it in this sort of way. So I don't know what your perspective of the gameplay is per se, but how have you found that?
So far, the only other ability I've unlocked has been the wall climbing ability. And I've backtracked, I think I actually backtracked to near the beginning of the game, so I can definitely see what you mean. And unlocking the different aspects, I think it's a nice touch. It's especially, like you said, because it's a short game, you want to be able to explore. The creator obviously wanted you to explore every part of this world in every little detail. And I find with a lot of games these days, especially so like a AAA title, for example, it will be just riddled with collectibles and achievements and things you don't necessarily feel are going to change your perspective on this world at all. And
there is a lot of that though in this particular game. There's health pickups and ability pickups. Let's go on to abilities actually, because that's kind of one of the main things about this game, which I think may or may not be the best thing about it. So,
okay, well, there's.
You've got
as
these,
far
like,
as core mechanics go, I've actually found that the combat so far has been a bit hit or miss. I mean, I've never really been much of a fan of just hammering on a button to get things done. Does the combat improve through the game, or? It
does, but the initial few hours or so, whilst you're playing it, it does feel really, really sluggish when it comes to the combat. You do get abilities that really do help though. So one of the abilities you get is I think it's called Bash. And what it does, it's mapped to, if you are playing on the Xbox, for example, it's mapped to the Y button. And what you can do is you can jump into, say, a projectile or something, or an enemy, and launch off of them. And what that does, it gives you a boost, but it also launches them behind you. So, for example, if you've got an enemy that's really, really tough, you can't get at it using your flares, what you can do is you can actually grab the projectile they've just fired at you and launch it back at them.
And I'm guessing that adds into like another ability part, like unlocking different parts of a level using new
absolutely.
Abilities.
So you can actually use projectiles to unlock different areas of the game. So, for example, there's this one bit where there's a spider that's firing what I can only describe are bombs at you. And what you can do is you can actually grab said projectile and launch it at a bit of breakable wall that you can't break using your own personal abilities. And what that does is it unlocks new areas for you to explore. That actually leads me to the fact that this game is not so much about the combat, but more about the platforming. And certainly as you progress through the game, it does get more difficult.
So a little bit more like a classic Sonic or a Mario title then in that respect.
Yes and no. It's more, I would say it's definitely more like Metroid.
Okay.
Than any other game, but without the sort of shooting mechanics being as compelling as they are in Metroid. But it's still a really, really solid, tight platformer. When you get to the bits towards the end, you may feel that there is a bit of a difficulty spike, but I actually think that's a good thing for a game such as this, a game that doesn't have as long a runtime, because it means that, you've got all the abilities, these are the challenges, let's do this.
So I'm guessing it just comes up to a natural crescendo as it is. It just comes
absolutely.
up to a natural peak at where the difficulty just comes to a spike and then it ends, and you've got the closure there because it's actually felt like a challenge, like some kind of achievement.
Absolutely. And the ability points that you get actually unlock some interesting things. Like, yes, you get ones that improve your attacks slightly, but you also get things like being able to breathe underwater, or doing a third jump like a triple jump instead of a double jump. There's all sorts of things that you can unlock, and some of them help with exploration as well, which makes picking up all the MacGuffins that are scattered throughout the world a lot easier. So in terms of actual gameplay, I really enjoyed it towards the end, but it was a bit of a slow grind at the beginning.
Well, I'm guessing that you're not talking a slow grind is in World of Warcraft grind, so for me that's
No.
perfect.
What I mean by slow grind is purely the fact that the combat is literally hammer on a button until you get the first ability, which is holding the button and making things implode, which you got.
At least it's not a Call of Duty press B to one of the dead.
Yeah. It's got all the feels without pressing the button.
Brilliant.
What would you say were your final thoughts on this game?
From what I've played so far, I would say, please can you shut up and let me go back to playing it, because I love this game. I want to play more of it. I want to reach the end, and I've not been this invested in an adventure-y platform game for a long time. It's refreshing for me.
I have to agree with you. This is stunning tour de force. It's exquisite enough that you can appreciate the art style, and you can appreciate just the amount of effort that they've gone into creating some quite fiendishly difficult levels. I mean, I think in the end I died at least 200 times, but I was never really frustrated by it, and I did feel as if I was improving as the game was progressing, and the abilities actually helped towards that. But the biggest strength comes in both the narrative and the actual presentation itself. You can't argue with,
especially that music score.
And that music score is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. How would you rate it out of 5 stars?
I would happily rate it, I'd say from what I've played so far, probably a 4.5.
I certainly think a 4.5.
4.5 across the board by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's it from myself and Skirkridge. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and until the next time, take care.
See you later.
And if you don't cry within the first 10 minutes, you're a monster.
Ori and the Blind Forest is out now on Xbox One for $15.99 and PC for $14.99, or your regional equivalent.